The humble artist. Marcus Daniels was a man of immense talent, a creator who wielded his brush as though it were an extension of his soul. His paintings, vibrant and emotional, told stories of struggle, hope, and resilience. Yet, despite the brilliance of his work, Marcus remained largely unknown in the art world, a world that seemed to have little room for someone like him. Born and raised in a low-income neighborhood in Detroit, Marcus's childhood was marked by hardship. His father, a factory worker, and his mother, a nurse, worked tirelessly to provide for him and his siblings. Art became Marcus's escape, his refuge from the challenges of his environment. As a young boy, he would sit by the cracked window of their small apartment, sketching scenes of his neighborhood, the corner store bustling with life, children playing in the street, and the unyielding resilience of his community. His talent was evident early on, but opportunities were scarce. Marcus dreamed of attending art school, but the cost was a barrier his family could not overcome. Undeterred, he taught himself by borrowing art books from the library and studying the works of masters like Basquiat, Picasso, and Van Gogh. He spent countless nights experimenting with techniques, transforming whatever he could find into canvases, cardboard, old bed sheets, and even the backs of cereal boxes. As an adult, Marcus juggled multiple jobs to support his passion. By day, he worked as a janitor at a local community center, and by night, he drove for a rideshare company. In the few hours he had to himself, he painted. His studio was a cramped corner of his living room, where easels were squeezed between a worn-out couch and a stack of second-hand books. Despite his dedication, Marcus encountered the harsh realities of systemic discrimination in the art world. Time and again, he submitted his work to galleries, only to be met with silence or polite rejections. Some gallery owners barely glanced at his portfolio, dismissing him with condescending smiles. Others offered backhanded compliments, suggesting his art lacked the sophistication required for their clientele. Marcus knew the unspoken truth behind their rejections. His skin color, his neighborhood, and his lack of formal training made him an outsider in an elitist industry. But he refused to give up. He believed in the power of his art, the ability to capture raw, unfiltered emotion and to tell stories that deserved to be heard. One day, after months of frustration, inspiration struck Marcus like a lightning bolt. He decided to create a series that would capture his life experiences, the struggles, the triumphs, and the moments that defined him. He titled the series Roots and Wings, a metaphor for his journey of staying grounded in his identity while striving for something greater. The centerpiece of the series was a hauntingly beautiful painting called The Cornerstone. It depicted a young black boy standing in the shadow of a towering cityscape, his face illuminated by a beam of light. Surrounding him were fragments of memories, his mother's hands tending to a wound, a basketball rolling down an empty street, and a silhouette of a man walking away. The painting was a reflection of Marcus's life, raw and unvarnished. Each piece in the series carried a similar depth of emotion. Unbroken Chains portrayed the weight of systemic oppression, while Rise Above celebrated the resilience of the human spirit. As Marcus worked on the series, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He poured every ounce of his pain, hope, and determination into the canvases, knowing they were his voice in a world that often refused to listen. When the series was complete, Marcus knew it was time to take a leap of faith. He decided to approach a prestigious gallery in the heart of the city, a place known for showcasing contemporary art. He had no connections, no credentials, and no guarantees, but he believed in the power of his work. With his portfolio in hand and a mix of hope and anxiety in his heart, Marcus stepped into the gallery. The walls were adorned with sleek, minimalist paintings, and the air was thick with the scent of polished wood and expensive perfume. It was a world far removed from his own, but Marcus held his head high. He was ready to prove that his art, born from struggle and authenticity, deserved to be seen. What Marcus didn't know was that this visit would set in motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. The mockery. The prestigious gallery was everything Marcus had imagined, and more. The high ceilings were adorned with intricate moldings, and sunlight poured through expansive windows, highlighting the curated collection of contemporary art. Each piece seemed to scream wealth and sophistication. Marcus felt slightly out of place in his well-worn jacket and scuffed shoes, but he clutched his portfolio tightly, determined to make his case. Vivian Hartley, the gallery owner, was a woman known for her sharp tongue and discerning eye. She moved through her gallery like a queen surveying her kingdom, her designer heels clicking on the polished marble floor. She wore a tailored navy suit, her platinum blonde hair swept into a severe bun, and her face bore the expression of someone perpetually unimpressed. When Marcus approached the front desk, a young assistant informed him that he could have a brief moment with Ms. Hartley. Marcus waited, nerves building, until she finally appeared. Vivian's gaze swept over him quickly, her eyes lingering momentarily on his worn appearance. "Yes? How can I help you?" she asked, her tone clipped and disinterested. Marcus introduced himself, explaining that he was an artist with a series he believed would resonate deeply with viewers. He handed her his portfolio, his heart pounding as she took it without enthusiasm. Vivian opened the portfolio and flipped through a few pieces, barely pausing to look. She said, her voice dripping with condescension. "This is colorful. I suppose that's the word for it." Marcus frowned. "Colorful? I poured my life into these pieces. They tell stories of resilience, identity, and hope." Vivian smirked, snapping the portfolio shut. "I'm sure they do, but this isn't the sort of work our clientele is looking for. They prefer art with a bit more, what's the word? Sophistication." "Sophistication?" Marcus echoed, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Have you even taken a proper look at them? The details? The meaning behind each piece?" Vivian crossed her arms and sighed. "Listen, Mr. Daniels, I'm sure these would look lovely in a community center or maybe even a local cafe. But here, we cater to a different kind of buyer. And frankly, this doesn't quite fit." Marcus felt a knot forming in his stomach. "You're dismissing me without even understanding my work," he said, his voice firm but controlled. "Why?" Vivian arched an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I know my clientele. They're looking for artists with pedigree, people who've studied at the top institutions, people who can sell more than a sob story. You don't exactly fit the profile, do you?" The words hit Marcus like a slap. He stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing with a mix of anger and humiliation. But before he could respond, Vivian delivered the final blow. "Look," she said, gesturing vaguely at his portfolio. "Art is a tough world, and not everyone makes it. Maybe stick to your day job. You're clearly passionate, but this isn't for you." Marcus stared at her, struggling to keep his emotions in check. Without another word, he took his portfolio and turned to leave, his chest tight and his vision blurred. As he walked out of the gallery, he could feel the eyes of a few patrons following him, their whispers only amplifying his sense of defeat. Unbeknownst to Marcus, a young woman standing near the gallery entrance had been observing the interaction. She had pulled out her phone midway through and discreetly recorded the exchange. The video captured Vivian's dismissive tone, her condescending remarks, and Marcus's quiet dignity as he left the gallery. The woman, appalled by what she had witnessed, decided to share the video on social media with the caption, "This talented artist was dismissed because of stereotypes and elitism. His work deserves to be seen. Let's make it happen." Within hours, the video began to gain traction. People were captivated by Marcus's story and the glimpses of his artwork visible in the video. Comments flooded in, expressing outrage at Vivian's behavior and admiration for Marcus's resilience. The clip was shared widely, with influencers, artists, and activists amplifying it under hashtags like #SupportBlackArtists and #ArtForAll. By the time Marcus returned home, still stinging from the rejection, his phone was buzzing incessantly with notifications. Confused, he opened a message from a friend who had seen the video. As Marcus watched the clip of his humiliation play out on screen, he felt a mix of emotions, anger, embarrassment, and a flicker of hope. For the first time, people were paying attention to his art. His name was on the lips of strangers, and his work was being celebrated for its raw emotion and power. The seeds of change had been planted, though Marcus couldn't yet see how far they would grow. The rise to fame. By the time Marcus woke the next morning, the world had already started to change around him. His phone was buzzing with notifications, texts, calls, and social media alerts. Initially, he dismissed them, assuming it was spam or a friend sending him random messages. But as the buzzes became relentless, he opened one of the texts. "Marcus, your work is everywhere. Check Twitter." Confused, he opened his phone to find a flood of messages and tags on social media. The video of his interaction with Vivian had exploded overnight, garnering millions of views. People were enraged by the dismissive way Vivian had treated him, but more importantly, they were captivated by the glimpses of his artwork captured in the background of the video. Art critics and enthusiasts began to chime in, analyzing the few visible pieces in the footage. They praised the depth and vibrancy of his work, calling it raw, profound, and a bold exploration of identity and struggle. Prominent figures in the art world shared the video, decrying the elitism in galleries and calling for greater representation of diverse voices in the industry. Marcus stared at his screen in disbelief as comment after comment poured in, with strangers expressing their support and admiration. His inbox was filled with inquiries, people asking about his art, where they could see more, and how to purchase pieces. Among the flood of emails was one that stood out. It was from a prominent art collector named Jonathan Grayson, a man known for his keen eye and patronage of emerging artists. Marcus hesitated before opening it, unsure if it was real. But as he read the message, his breath caught in his throat. "Dear Mr. Daniels, I recently came across your work through the video circulating online, and I must say, I am deeply impressed by what I've seen. Your art carries a powerful narrative that is both moving and urgent. I would like to purchase your entire Roots and Wings series for my private collection. Please contact me at your earliest convenience to discuss the terms. I am prepared to offer $500,000 for the series, and I believe this is only the beginning of your journey as an artist. Sincerely, Jonathan Grayson." Marcus read the email 3 times to make sure he wasn't imagining it. $500,000? For his art? It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream. He replied cautiously, trying not to sound too eager, and within hours, he was on a video call with Jonathan. The collector was warm and enthusiastic, speaking passionately about the potential he saw in Marcus's work. By the end of the call, they had an agreement. Jonathan would buy the series and help connect Marcus with other collectors and galleries. News of the sale spread quickly, further catapulting Marcus into the spotlight. Major art publications reached out for interviews, eager to hear his story. Headlines declared him the self-taught artist breaking down barriers and a voice for change in the art world. Marcus's face, once unknown outside his neighborhood, was now everywhere. Soon, invitations poured in from galleries across the country. Exhibitions wanted to feature his work, and organizations sought him out to speak on panels about diversity and inclusion in the arts. Marcus, who had spent years struggling to be seen, was suddenly at the center of an industry-wide conversation. But it wasn't just about his art. The video of his encounter with Vivian had sparked a broader movement. People began sharing their own stories of discrimination and gatekeeping in creative industries, using Marcus's journey as inspiration. Hashtags like #ArtForEveryone and #BreakingBarriers trended for days, and discussions about systemic inequality in the art world gained momentum. Meanwhile, Marcus remained grounded. Despite the newfound attention, he stayed true to his roots, crediting his community and life experiences as the foundation of his work. He made it clear in interviews that his success wasn't just about him, it was about opening doors for others who had been overlooked. As Marcus stood in his small apartment, staring at the check that represented years of struggle and determination, he knew this was only the beginning. His art had finally found its audience, and his voice was being heard. But more importantly, he was becoming a symbol of change, a beacon for artists who, like him, had been told they didn't belong. The world was watching, and Marcus was ready to rise. Tables turned. Vivian Hartley sat in her office, flipping through the latest issue of Art Review Weekly. It was her routine to stay updated on trends and rising stars in the art world. But as she turned to a 2-page spread, her breath caught. Bold letters read, Marcus Daniels, the self-taught visionary redefining contemporary art. The feature included several photos of Marcus's Roots and Wings series, accompanied by glowing praise from critics. The centerpiece, the cornerstone, was described as a masterpiece of raw emotion and storytelling. Vivian's eyes widened as she scanned the article, realizing the buzz around Marcus was not just hype. Collectors were clamoring for his work, and his influence was sparking discussions on diversity in art. Unaware of their prior encounter, Vivian saw an opportunity. Marcus Daniels was the talk of the art world, and his presence at her gallery could elevate its prestige. She picked up the phone and instructed her assistant to reach out to Marcus, requesting a meeting. When Marcus received the email from Vivian's gallery, he recognized the name immediately. A mixture of emotions washed over him, disbelief, vindication, and a trace of satisfaction. Vivian had no idea she was reaching out to the same artist she had dismissed so cruelly just weeks ago. Instead of declining, Marcus saw an opportunity. He replied, agreeing to meet, but he signed the email using his initials only, MD. He wanted to confront Vivian directly, but on his terms. The day of the meeting arrived. Marcus dressed sharply in a tailored suit, a far cry from the casual attire he had worn during his last visit. With his portfolio in hand, not out of necessity, but as a statement, he walked into the gallery with quiet confidence. Vivian greeted him with a practiced smile, extending her hand. Mr. Daniels, thank you for coming. I've been following your work closely, and I must say, it's extraordinary. Thank you, Marcus replied, shaking her hand firmly. It's good to be here. Vivian led him to a sleek conference room, her tone effusive as she outlined her vision. We'd like to host a solo exhibition for you here at Hartley Gallery. Your work has such emotional depth, it's exactly the kind of artistry we want to showcase. Our clientele would adore it. Marcus listened, letting her continue. She spoke of marketing strategies, guest lists, and the prestige her gallery could offer. Finally, she leaned back and smiled. So, what do you think? He paused, savoring the moment. It's fascinating, Miss Hartley. Do you remember me? Vivian blinked, her smile faltering. I'm sorry, should I? Marcus opened his portfolio, the same one he had brought weeks earlier. He placed the cornerstone on the table, letting it speak for itself. Her face paled as she stared at the piece, recognition dawning. I was here a few weeks ago, Marcus said calmly. I brought this same portfolio to you, hoping to showcase my work. You told me it belonged in a community center or a cafe. You suggested I stick to my day job. Vivian's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her composure cracked as embarrassment and realization flooded her features. I'm the artist you dismissed, Marcus continued, his tone measured but firm. You barely glanced at my work before making assumptions about who I was and what I was capable of. Vivian stammered, I didn't mean to offend. You did, Marcus interjected, his voice steady. But it doesn't matter now. That moment fueled me to keep pushing, and as you can see, the world finally noticed. Vivian looked down, her usual confidence replaced with discomfort. Mr. Daniels, I made a mistake. I see that now. Your work is exceptional, and I was wrong to dismiss it. I hope you'll give me the chance to make things right. Marcus studied her for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then, he stood. Thank you for the offer, but I don't need your validation or your gallery. My art has found its audience, and I'll continue to share it on my terms. Vivian nodded, humbled. I understand. If there's anything I can do to support your work, please let me know. As Marcus left the gallery, he felt a sense of closure. Vivian's recognition of her mistake wasn't the validation he had sought, but it was a reminder of how far he had come. For the first time, the gatekeeper was on the outside looking in, and Marcus was in control of his own destiny. A new era. Months passed since Marcus's confrontation with Vivian, and his star continued to rise. His work became a mainstay in major exhibitions, and he was frequently invited to speak on the importance of diversity and representation in the art world. Despite his success, Marcus couldn't forget the systemic barriers he had faced. He had become a symbol of change, but he wanted to do more, something bold and impactful that would create lasting opportunities for artists like him. It was during one of his gallery tours that an idea began to take shape. Marcus walked through a sleek, well-funded gallery showcasing emerging talent. The space was breathtaking, filled with vibrant pieces, but the plaques on the walls told a familiar story. Most of the artists came from elite institutions or wealthy backgrounds. He thought back to Vivian's gallery, remembering not just the rejection but the space itself. It was well situated, prominent, and, under the right vision, could become a force for change. The thought of buying it seemed almost absurd at first, but the more Marcus considered it, the more it made sense. He had the resources now, and the symbolic weight of taking over a space that had once turned him away was too perfect to ignore. A bold move. Marcus reached out to Vivian with a proposition. He wanted to buy her gallery. Initially, she was shocked, but the offer was generous, and the gallery had been struggling to recover from the backlash after the viral video. After some negotiation, they reached an agreement. Marcus Daniels would become the new owner of the Hartley Gallery. Once the deal was finalized, Marcus announced his plans to the public. The gallery would be renamed Roots Collective Gallery, and its mission would be to showcase the work of diverse and underrepresented artists. The announcement was met with overwhelming support from the art community and beyond. Critics lauded Marcus's decision, calling it a groundbreaking moment in the fight against elitism in the art world. Transforming the space. The first thing Marcus did was redesign the gallery's interior to reflect its new ethos. He hired artists from marginalized communities to create murals and installations, turning the space into a celebration of identity, culture, and resilience. The inaugural exhibition featured works from self-taught and emerging artists, many of whom had never had the chance to showcase their art in such a prestigious venue. Marcus also established mentorship programs and workshops, providing opportunities for young artists to learn, grow, and network. He created a fund to help cover exhibition costs for artists who couldn't afford them, ensuring financial barriers wouldn't prevent talent from being recognized. Vivian's redemption. As part of the deal, Marcus offered Vivian a role in the new gallery. At first, she was hesitant, unsure of how she would be received. But Marcus saw potential for her to learn and grow, and perhaps use her connections to further the gallery's mission. Vivian accepted, humbled by the opportunity. Under Marcus's leadership, she began to see the art world through a new lens. She attended workshops and met artists whose stories were vastly different from what she had known. Slowly, she became an advocate for inclusion, using her experience and influence to amplify voices that had previously been silenced. At the grand opening of the Roots Collective Gallery, Vivian gave a heartfelt speech. She publicly acknowledged her past mistakes and expressed gratitude for the chance to be part of something transformative. The audience responded with applause, recognizing her efforts to change and support Marcus's vision. Inspiring a new generation. The gallery quickly became a cultural hub, attracting visitors from all over the world. Critics praised the exhibitions for their emotional depth and diversity, while emerging artists spoke of how the gallery had given them their first big break. Marcus's influence extended beyond the art world. He became a symbol of perseverance and social change, inspiring people from all walks of life to pursue their dreams despite the odds. One day, as Marcus walked through the gallery, he paused in front of the cornerstone, now a centerpiece in the permanent collection. A young artist approached him, holding a sketchpad. "Mr. Daniels," she said nervously, "your story changed my life. I never thought someone like me could make it, but seeing what you've done, it gives me hope." Marcus smiled, remembering his own journey. "That's why we're here," he said. "To make sure no one else feels invisible." The story of Marcus Daniels and the Roots Collective Gallery became a legend in the art world, a testament to the power of resilience, representation, and the belief that art should be for everyone. Marcus's journey wasn't just about his own success, it was about creating a legacy that would inspire generations to come.